Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book Healthcareless, none other than Mr. Brian Van Korn. Welcome, Mr. Brian, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, my name is Brian Van Korn. I'm an author. I'm also a musician, also a multimedia producer, and I've been in the industry for quite some time. And I decided, because of the experience I had with the healthcare system, that I would write a book about my memoir of what happened to me.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world through your Healthcareless, Mr. Brian. Thank you. So, can you take us to the single most disorienting or infuriating moment in your journey? The moment you realized the system was not just inefficient, but perhaps a truly broken for someone like you.
Absolutely. It was the it was when I was in the hospital with these extremely rare spinal condition that left me partially paralyzed from the waist down. I actually had walked into the hospital, and in the process of them looking to try to figure out what was wrong with me, um, the emergency room doctor had gotten it into his head that I was misdiagnosed. And what I was misdiagnosed was I was misdiagnosed that I was a drug abuser and that I was a difficult patient. And why I was in there was because I was in agonizing pain for 3 or 4 days. And then finally, friends of mine said, "Well, this is crazy. We got to get you to the hospital." So when we went, I walked in. I had no idea this massive damage was happening in my spinal cord. And neither did the hospital. And the height of how ridiculous this got was the emergency room doctor actually discharged me when I was paralyzed.
Beyond the obvious financial cost, what was the most draining hidden cost of navigating this fracture? The cost of your mental health, your relationships, or your sense of self?
Your sense of self in a hospital where things are up and down and you don't know which way is right, you don't know which way is left. And you have to think as sharp as a razor blade in there. And yet everything that's coming at you is so foreign to anything that you can imagine. Everything seems to go, I guess the best way I described it in my book is, as I said, it's like you're ice skating on oil. I'm sorry, that on ice that has oil smeared all over it. There's no up, no down. You can't. Your whole sense of time is completely gone, and you need the support of that system. And when that system is actually fighting against you, it completely eats at your soul, as you're saying.
Mister, what are the or where did you encounter this starkest disconnect between the humanity and your situation and the system bureaucratic or procedural response? Do you ever find a bright spot or a genuine human care within the machine?
I did. Many a time, there were many people in the hospital who were absolutely very connected to their humanity. They had not lost their um, connection to why they went into the medical world in the first place. And there were many of them who were looking to fight within the system so that the patients themselves would not keep suffering. And for the most part, many of these folks had to keep their mouths quiet or they could lose their jobs. But some were very brave. And one particular nurse actually spoke up against the emergency room doctor who was trying to discharge me again a third time while while I was paralyzed. And she stood right up against him and said to this doctor, "You, doctor, have lost your focus. You need to take yourself off the floor. You've been on the floor exhausted for 3 days. This is
Hmm.
not, you cannot work with this man this way. This is impossible." She was extremely brave and she could have lost her job. And I saw a lot of that kind of people who really stood up and tried to have their voices heard. It's a very powerful system, very powerful.
You become an expert in your own case out of necessity. What specific skill did you have to learn that no patient should ever need to master just to receive adequate care?
I be-
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
became masterful in understanding the code that many of the people in the medical world will use when they're talking about other patients or yourself as a patient. And by understanding this code, for instance, I will give you one of the codes. If you're in the hospital and you have a question perhaps about the service they're providing to you, you have the option to say, I'd rather not have this procedure, or I'd rather not have this thing on my hospital bed. And one of the codes is, you'll hear very well, you're refusing medical service. Now it sounds fairly simple, kind of cut, not that big of a deal. That's not true at all. It means that what you are doing is questioning the doctor who has prescribed this particular item that they brought to your hospital room. And that code is, you are going against your own medical well-being. That is how it is seen.
And Mr. Brian, where did you hit the most frustrating dead end due to lack of transparent information about cost, treatment options, or even your own prognosis? Who held the power in the situation?
Who held the power in the situation was a dear friend of mine who actually was doing research outside of the hospital. The hospital I was in was a highly secretive hospital. It was a hospital, it was known as a university type hospital. So everything in there was pretty much um, licensed. You couldn't even take photos in there without someone getting on your case and saying, you're not allowed to do this. So my friend actually had to do research to find out what was my condition that I had And there was only one other place in the entire world that had expertise on what I had, and that was Johns Hopkins.
Yes. And Mr. Brian, how do you respond to people who, knowing your ordeal, still said things like, at least you have insurance, or at least you got treatment eventually? What does that common refrain miss?
I'm 100% grateful that this hospital did work with me in the beginning. It could have been a lot worse. However, the tangled web I had to go through to get the proper insurance was a nightmare. And the last thing a patient who's dealing with the kind of pressure and the stress and the trauma that was being visited upon me in that room, they were coming in and handing forms to me that should have been handled by the hospital's system that is supposed to work as the advocacy for the patients. That was not done in my case. I had to do this all by myself, looking at all this paperwork, and still at the time dealing with, will I be paralyzed for the rest of my life?
Okay, so Mr. Brian, based on your leave experience, is the core fracture in the system is one of the profit motive, or Byzantine complexity, or misaligned incentive, or something else entirely?
Well, it's fairly simple. What I learned about a year and a half ago from a friend of mine who actually would probably be a great guest for you. She deals with the suicide rate that happens with people in the medical profession. And I learned about these three letters. And these three letters are PGU. And these letters stand for profit generating unit. What I discovered was one of the reasons the healthcareless system exists is because it's crushed between two systems. On the one system is big pharma, and the other is the insurance company. And unfortunately, they see that medical personnel and patients have to be able to generate profit for this machinery to keep going. Hence, that's why doctors, medical personnel are only able to see you for a very, very short period of time. They're also not taught in many ways to have bedside manner. It's not really going to help the patient.
Hmm. Okay, so Mr. Brian, for those who say the US has the best healthcare in the world, what does your story reveal about the difference between theoretical excellence for some and live reality for many?
In my case, I was in a state-of-the-art hospital that did absolutely astounding work on helping people with, say, heart issues, spinal injury. I'm sorry, not spinal injuries, but heart issues, lung issues, even brain issues. But what they were woefully not prepared for was for a patient to be in their hospital for anything over 2 weeks. This is where I began to learn and see what actually happens behind the scenes in a hospital. And it was quite horrendous in many ways, especially how I could see other patients being treated, especially how I saw at night when patients were terrified on my floor and they would be ringing out for help to be come to their room from the stations, the nurses' stations. Many a times I would roll up and I would actually see the buttons were shut off at the nurse's station.
Your stories highlights that navigating this crisis is a monumental task. What does your experience suggest about the fate of those without your level of persistence, education, and supportive network?
Advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. Make 100% sure if you're going to go to a hospital for even the simplest routine, absolutely bring an advocate with you, a friend, a family member, somebody. Because unfortunately, these systems can spin wildly out of control. And for the most part, the person who will be blamed will not be that system. It'll land pretty much on the patient. So learn as much as you possibly can before you go to the hospital. Get second, third, fourth opinions, and absolutely do your due diligence online. And if a doctor even says to you, well, do you want to be the doctor or the patient? Well, it is your body, it is your life. You take control. You cannot find enough information, and it's your life on the line.
In your scariest or most vulnerable medical moment, did you feel like a patient, a consumer, or a supplicant? What did the system structure tell you about your role?
Well, for most part, in the hospital, it was very much as if I was a inmate in a institution of a sort. Um, that's really what it felt like. I never felt that I was anything other than a person in there with a condition. And many a times being in there for 5 months, a lot of times the people in there didn't even know my name. They just knew me as, oh, it's that guy. It's that guy.
Okay, so Mr. Brian, even after the immediate crisis passed, how this journey permanently altered your relationship to your own body, to doctors, or the planning for the future?
For the future, part of realizing the experience I went, my goal was to prevent other people from experiencing what happened to me. So, in doing that, I wrote my book about my experience and hoping that people who have had these experiences would then be able to share it with other people. Because as more and more people raise their voices and other people raise their hands and say, there is something wrong with this system, we've got to do something about it. Well, one of the most important things to do is absolutely do the best you possibly can to talk to your own personal doctor. Let them know how happy you are with them as your doctor. Because the system right now is doing everything it possibly can to push the patients and the medical personnel away from each other. It's a conquer and divide is what's going on there. So any chance you have, when you're in there being examined, just say, thank you. I greatly appreciate the work you're doing. I'm really happy you're my doctor. That's how the connection comes back. That's how we bring back care to healthcare.
For the doctors, nurses, and administrators who trap with this broken system but want to help, what is the most impactful thing they can do in their daily practice to ease the burden for someone like you?
To recognize at any given moment, their position could be switched and they could be in the bed that I was in, and that they recall and remember what it was like and what it was like to hear what the patients would be calling out and ask them, I need help. I need some food here. I need to be taken care of. And realize that in some instances, even in this top flight hospital, I'd be waiting sometimes for 40 minutes to an hour to be able to get the service. So for them to remember, these are human beings here. These are just not conditions. These aren't just people who are sick. These are your friends. These are your family members. They're your best friend, your mother, your father. Remember the oath why you went into the medical profession in the first place. To be a healer.
To be a healer indeed. So, Mr. Brian, to wrap up our discussion for today, healthcareless is a powerful word. Does it describe a temporary state you were in, or do you believe it's a permanent condition for millions in the country? Has your journey led you to hope or a different kind of resolve?
I wish I had a little bit more optimistic viewpoint on it. But unfortunately, after COVID, many medical personnel who were not fit to really be working in these institutions would have been called up to be judged by a medical board. If they were abusive to patients, doctors, nurses, this can happen. Well, what happened was when COVID came in, many of these people who were really not fit to be in these positions were given an opportunity. You can come back to work, and we'll talk later about the charges that'll be held against you. And then when COVID dissipated, many of these doctors, many of these people in the medical profession went back, and what they actually did was get in touch with social media and say, look how the hospital is treating us. We were heroes. We came back. We put our lives in danger. And this is how they treat us as heroes? They threaten us? They're going to fire us? And what happened was many hospitals caved because of feeling that they would get negative social, almost like being canceled. So many hospitals, right now as I speak, have many of these personnel in here. So the hospitals now are even more dangerous.
More dangerous. So, Mr. Brian, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, Healthcareless?
Yes, I greatly appreciate by purchasing this book, you're being able to go ahead and make a stand and understand what the American healthcare system is dealing with right now. And the only way it's going to be able to transform is by people doing their own due diligence. And one of the things is my personal story, my memoir, will be able to give a great insight as to what can happen in there. And you'll be educated and reading it and being able to be prepared for yourself to enter or another loved one who may go in.
Yes, people will support Mr. Brian. And for sure, if you will support him, more and more empowering books like this to come.
Yeah, my book is on... I apologize. Do you want to...
Go ahead. So where they can buy your book, Mr. Brian?
Thank you. My book is on Amazon, and it's on Kindle, and it's also on Audible. And I did the narration in that I have a radio type voice. And
yes.
One thing for the audience, the spelling of my book is unique. It's all one word, and it spells Healthcareless. And to find it, put my name in, Brian Van Korn, and my book will turn up. And you can't miss it. It's got a big round, broken red cross. And I greatly appreciate it. Please take a look at it, share it, and do some reviews. The system has to change. Not one other person has to suffer the way I did. It's insane. It does not have to happen.
Yes, people, once again, let's support Mr. Brian. And more to come, people. See you soon.
At this junction right now, we're in the process